Happy week after Easter, huh? Okay, if you're 6th, 7th, or 8th grade, you want to make your way out the door right now. Can the rest of us turn in our Bibles to the book of Daniel, chapter 2, and we're going to learn about the dream of the future. Now, let's start with this. What's the best dream you've ever had? You see, experts tell us that we all dream. Okay, but the problem is remembering the dream. The experts say that if you average 8 hours of sleep a night, some hour and a half to 2 hours of that is spent dreaming. Of course, don't remember in the morning. So I've been going around this week asking people, hey, what's your best dream? And you know, some people said, I dream of finding money. Yeah, well, good luck with that. I had another guy say, oh, I dream of the ultimate tube ride. And I go, well, that's really dreaming on your, I've seen you surf. And but others, I asked Danny, you know, the new guy on staff, the young guy. I asked him, he goes, well, my favorite is a dream within a dream. And I said, could you explain that? He goes, well, I'm dreaming, and in the dream I wake up, but I'm still having a dream. I go, bro, you were way too deep for me, okay? That one scares me. You know, my favorite dream was one I never had. When I was a kid, you know, last century, when I was a kid, my older brother and I shared a room. And, you know, we just kind of talked to each other as we fall asleep. And so one night, I don't know, I was probably 7, 8 years old, and I was having this, as I'm falling asleep, I'm dreaming that I'm this football player, and I got the football in one of them, and I'm just running lightning speed through all these people, and it's the glory dream. And my brother goes, hey, Mike, and I woke up. And so then, you know, I was, okay, I'm dreaming, and I had the football in my hand, and I'm trying, and it didn't work. I was trying to dream a good one, and it didn't work. I literally had people walk up to me. Now this gal was in a church like 30-some years ago. She comes up to me and said this, have you ever had this happen? I had a dream about you. Okay. And she goes, yeah, you died. And I go, oh, thank you for sharing that. Bless you too, you know. You've heard, this was over 30 years ago, so you've heard of false prophets. She was a false dreamer. And she has since left the church. I guess she was disappointed that I'm still alive. But be that as it may, we all have these different dreams. Now, because of stuff like this, some people today, some commentators say, well, there were dreams in the Old Testament, right? Joseph had the dreams of his brothers, mom and dad bowing to him. You have dreams in the New Testament, right? Where Joseph and Mary, remember, Joseph was warned in a dream, don't go back there. But they said, well, now it's all over. No more dreams. But I know what they mean, because some people go a little too far with this stuff, a little cuckoo. But Joel chapter 2, which was quoted, of course, in Peter's first sermon there in Acts chapter 2. Joel said, in the last days, I will cause old men to dream dreams. Well, not for nothing, but I am 60. So if I have a prophetic dream, it's probably right on. If you're younger and you have a prophetic dream, you're probably a kook, okay? And maybe that's your cardinal, I don't know. Great. Okay, so here's some other possible dreams. That's just, thank you, whoever that is. They're the person with the red face right now. Okay, but you're awake. That's good. Have you ever had a frustrating dream? You know, when you're trying to run from somebody and you're in mud and you just, or you know, I used to in junior high remember this dream where I'd get in a fight and I go to punch the guy, and right before his cheek, my hand would kind of melt and get weird. So right now, if you're trying to analyze me through my dreams, you know, yeah, good luck with that. If you get something, tell my wife, because she's been trying to figure out. Okay, how about frightening dreams? When you sense that there's somebody else in the room. You know, my wife had one of these recently, And I don't know why, she has this dream where she is asleep and a football gets thrown in the room and it crosses her body and some big gnarly football player reaches over and catches the ball. And she woke up because she sensed that something had crossed her body, woke up all freaked out, and then he can't go back to sleep. You ever had one of those dreams? That's the kind of dream we're going to talk about this morning. 2,600 years ago, a king who was the king of the entire world at that time has this crazy dream. It freaks him out. He wakes up. He can't remember the dream, but he remembers the impact. It was kind of frightening. So let's begin by reading Daniel chapter 2, verses 1 through 13. And I'm reading from the New King James Bible. Right? Now, in the second year of Nebuchadnezzar, that's the king, second year of his reign, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams. And his spirit was so troubled that his sleep left him, so he wakes up. Then the king gave the command to call the magicians, the astrologers, the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans to tell the dream to the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king. And the king said to them, I've had a dream, and my spirit is anxious to know the dream, meaning I can't remember the dream. Then the Chaldeans spoke to the king in Aramaic. Well, what's interesting is at this point in the book of Daniel, from chapter 2, verse 4, through the end of chapter 7, verse 28, it's all in a different language. It's in Aramaic, which is the language of the Babylonians. Before it's been in Hebrew. So now, we switch over language. And they say to the king in Aramaic, verse 4, O king, live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we'll give you the interpretation. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, my decision is firm. If you do not make known the dream to me and its interpretation, you shall be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be made an ash heap. This guy had anger problems. Okay. However, if you tell the dream and its interpretation, you shall receive from me gifts, rewards, and great honor. Therefore, tell me the dream and its interpretation. Verse 7, they answered again and said, King, let the king tell his servants the dream and we'll give you the interpretation. The king answered and said, I know for certain that you would gain time. You're just stalling. Because you see that my decision is firm. If you do not make known the dream to me, there's only one decree for you. You have agreed to speak lying and corrupt words before me till the time has changed. Meaning, I don't trust you guys. I think you've got this plan going. Therefore, tell me the dream, and I shall know that you give me its interpretation. Verse 10, the Chaldeans answered the king and said, there's not a man on earth who can tell the king's matter. Therefore, no king, lord, or ruler has ever asked such things of any magician, astrologer, or Chaldean. It's a difficult thing that the king requests. There's no other who can tell it except the gods I love, whose dwelling is not with flesh. Verse 12, for this reason the king was angry and very furious and gave the command to destroy all the wise men in Babylon. So the decree went out, and they began killing the wise men. My wife said, did they really do it? Yeah. They began killing the wise men, and they sought Daniel and his, remember the three friends, to kill them. Okay, what's going on here? Well, he's awoken from this dream, but why is he so disturbed? Well, in the rest of this chapter, we'll get into the dream. It's this humongous statue. In the original language, it says it was gigantic. All right? And he knows it's something special about this dream. And at the end, this rock comes out of nowhere, hits the statue on its feet, and it just crushes it. Then the statue now blows away. And then this rock becomes a mountain and fills the whole earth. He freaks out and he wakes up and goes, what in the world did I just dream? So, here we see a guy with an abuse of power. He's got the pack. He's got pride, abuse of power, pride and anger. He really needs an anger management class. And he's got power, the abuse of power. And here in his abuse of power, he gathers all these guys. Now, I'm picturing it still at night. I see this guy waking up in the middle of the night, early morning, and just, what? And he's got the power. Get all my wise guys right here. right now we're going to settle this thing. And then he has the audacity to say, you need to do this, or I'm going to cut you to pieces. Now in verse 5, this makes sense if you've ever seen the old Tarzan movies. Guys, isn't that cool? That remember the black and white before they invented color? And in Tarzan, if they really wanted to shock somebody with judgment, they would have these two tall trees and bend them over this way and tie them together. And then this guy, they would tie the guy's arms and legs to these two trees. Do you ever see this? I mean, I don't want you to have dreams about it tonight. But then they cut them up, and there's all the drums going and the crazy, and I was like, ah! And that was it. They never showed you. I'm sure you can get video games with that stuff now, but back then they never showed you that stuff. But here's the thing: in Babylon, they did that. Not just two trees, but 4 trees. They have these 4 trees pulled in, get an arm and a leg on each one, and boom! They cut. So when the king says, "I'm going to cut you in pieces," maybe in their mind they're going, "I've seen this done. I know this guy's for real. He's got that kind of power." And so they are now terrified. They're in the drama mode. So this is what happens. He calls all these 4 groups of people. And we want to know what these are. The magicians, they're highly trained. They're elite people. But notice, they think they know something and nobody else knows. You know, I think on the inside, a highway and stuff. One commentator said, this is like the fortune tellers of today. You know, with the 900 numbers, and the way you dial it is 1-900, I am a fool. Because, you know, they're just hocus pocus. Now, sometimes you're going to cross somebody who predicts a lot. That's found in the Old Testament as well. And it's a person often with a familiar spirit. You remember King Saul, the night before he died. He went to a medium. He went to a gal who had a familiar spirit. It can't happen. But here's the first group, the magicians. They felt they knew something. Then the second one is the astrologers. They're not the stargazers like we think of astrologers today. They had those, but not this group. This group of astrologers, they were the mystery whisperers. Okay? They thought they gave in-depth interpretation and mysteries that the average person couldn't. Today we have horse whisperers, right? And they have some kind of thing when they whisper to horses, and you know, it's kind of cool. I saw the other day on the web, this kind of scared me. There's a girl who's now a shark whisperer. I'd be careful with that one. But these guys claim to be mystery whisperers. And again, we know things that you don't know. Now, the idea of astrologers like we think of it, that is found here. It's later on in the chapter. In verse 27, they're the soothsayers. Literally means those who slice up the heavens in like the 12 slices of the zodiac. So they didn't know what was going on in the stream either. You have 2 more groups. The sorcerers. David Hawkins says they're basically witch doctors. Okay, every society seems to have them. And then the last one is the Chaldeans. Chaldeans are used in 2 ways. Number 1, to sum up the race of the Babylonians. And you'll see this often in the Old Testament. It seems interchangeable. Sometimes we call Babylonians, sometimes Chaldeans. But in this case, because he's this elite group of all the wise guys, they were the priests who kind of ran things there in Babylon. So, here's the deal. When they say, you tell us the dream and we'll tell you the interpretation, in the Babylonian culture, they had these code books. Okay? And so they're saying, okay, king, you tell us the dream, we'll look up in our books, and we'll tell you what it means. And the king's saying, I don't trust you guys. I think you're hocus pocus full blown. And if you claim to be something special, just tell me the dream and then you tell me the interpretation. See, in his mind, which is full of power, anger management, and pride, he's thinking, this is not an outrageous request because you claim such higher knowledge. You claim to know all these mysteries and secrets, so just tell me. He's just saying, put it on the line here. So they answered by going, no, only the gods could answer that one who don't dwell among flesh. I just love that because Emmanuel, the term that Jesus just loved, it means God with us. That was his whole thing, is he wanted to dwell with us. He wanted to dwell with mankind. So I love it. It says he's a very furious king. You get a picture of this guy, he's just had it. He's woken up in the middle of the sleep. He can't figure out this dream. He thinks all these guys who are on his payroll are a bunch of phonies. He said, you know what? Just kill them all. That's not a real good solution, King. You know, that's something of anger. That's abuse beyond imagination. So you go, you know what? It's not fair. And today, you might be facing something that's just not fair. You might have a boss who has an abuse of power. Or, in this case, a government with an abuse of power, trying to force you to do something you don't want to do, and you go, that's not fair. What, on a lower level, what are some things where you just go, you want to shake your fist and that's not fair? What if you have a brand new car and somebody keys the paint job on your car? It just makes me crazy when some punk, let's face it, some punk just walks through the parking lot, the length of a brand new car. It's just, it's not fair. You know how hard I worked to pay for that car, and I'm still paying for it? You know, so maybe that's the one they call you and say, it's not fair. How about this one? Earlier this month, a pastor of a church of 20,000 on the main was discovered he was not faithful to his wife. Saying it was the second time he's fallen with a second girl. And here, he's booted out, the board said, you're no longer pastor. I think of the wife and his children. That's not fair. Here's the wife going, I've been faithful. I got a ministry, now I have no ministry. I got no church, now I don't have, and how about the kids who have to go to school? He said, what? When your dad? It's not fair. And these people are suffering today, and it's not fair. How about this one? Obamacare. Now, I'm not getting political here. I'm just saying that some of you are already suffering from Obamacare. Some of you have jobs where it's up to you now to switch over to this care, and it's costing you more. You're getting less coverage for more money. And even like the big companies on the mainland who are suing our government because they're saying, you are forcing us to pay for abortions with this care. We're a Christian company, we won't do it. And so there's a big, big thing going on in that. And it's not fair. How dare you, infringe on my religious rights, telling me I have to pay for something I totally disagree with. Here's another one that's hitting a lot of us here in Hawaii, the new flood issues. Wait a minute. When I bought this house, I knew it was close to the beach. That's why I bought it. And now you're telling me I'm going to have to pay thousands, maybe tens of thousands of dollars more each year? That's not fair. Okay, here's the problem. You can figure out all kinds of not fairs in your life. But ways you were born, circumstances forced upon you, just something. And here's the deal. How do you respond? How do you respond when life isn't fair? This is the promise that's coming all week long. I love to give this promise to people in 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 30. Is that not easy? 1, 2, 3, 1 Samuel 2:30. God promises, those who honor me, I will honor. Meaning, it's not that escapes my notice. When you honor me by making the right decisions, by living a life that I can say, hey, see that's my kid, that's my daughter, that's my son. See how they responded? See how the others, and when you honor me, God says, I will honor you. So how do you honor God when life isn't fair? Let's continue now. Verses 14 to 23, Daniel chapter 2. Then with counsel and wisdom, I love that. Counsel and wisdom, Daniel answered Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, who had come out to kill all the wise men of Babylon. He answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain, why is the decree from the king so urgent? What's going on? It's kind of sudden. So Arioch made the decision known to Daniel. Verse 16, Daniel went in and asked the king to give him time that he might tell the king the interpretation. That's wild! Here's the king, he's got all these wise men. He just said, I don't trust you, get rid of them, kill them all. Now here comes a teenager from a foreign country. He says, hey, would you give me more time? He says, yeah. How did Daniel go in there in the first place? This guy, he's got pride, right? The anger, he's got the power, and he's just very furious. And that's what Daniel, the teenager, hey, I'm going to go talk to the king. Seriously? It's because when you kneel before God, you can stand before anyone. So then, verse 17, Daniel went to his house and made the decision known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions. Here, in this verse, they're called by their Hebrew names. Later in this chapter, they'll be called by their Babylonian names. It's verse 18. That they might seek the mercies from the God of heaven concerning the secret, so that Daniel and his companions might not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Then the secret was revealed to Daniel in a night vision, so Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Daniel answered and said, blessed be the name of God forever and ever. That's kind of like one of the songs we sang this morning. Blessed be your name. For wisdom and might are his, not this king's. And he changes the times and the season. He removes kings and raises up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals deep and secret things. Not these other guys. Not the astrologers and the magicians. No. God reveals them. I thank you and praise you, O God of my fathers. You have given me wisdom and might, and have made known to me what we asked of you. You answered prayer. And you made known to us the king's demand. So here's the secrets revealed. I love this. He responds. Remember we said, how do you respond? You know, how do you honor God when life isn't fair? And Daniel responds with counsel and wisdom. He's accountable right away. He's getting some godly people in his life and saying, guys, we need wisdom on how to approach this. You know, well, how else would he respond? How do you respond when life isn't fair? I think the most common one is right here. We live in denial. This can't be happening to me. I mean, that's totally understandable. It happens, you know. No, this isn't the plan. We haven't planned it. This is not happening. And some people, that's all they do. Just sit there in denial. Others, well, they curse the government. Don't you think Daniel could have done that? Man, with this government, these Babylonians are wacko. He could have cursed his boss. My boss is a sorry case. The guy's got a pride trip. He's got anger problems. He's got, you know, power problems. You know, in Daniel's case, it was a double win. Because it was the government doing this to him, and it was his boss doing this to him. And he could have all these things that I could respond this way or that way. Other people, they don't do too good. Daniel accepts his, quote, new reality. And he says, okay, let's honor God with our response. He said, I don't really like that term, new reality, but boy, does it fit here. Right away, I'm picturing late at night, early in the morning, what, just woken up from a dream, what's going on? And rather than just sitting there, this can't be happening, he goes, it is happening. And we need to move on this in a proper way. We want to honor God even at this crazy time in our lives. So the prayer meeting is called, and I love this, to seek the mercies of God in heaven. Their problem led them to prayer. Okay? Other people have problems, and that leads them to gossip, or drinking, or drugs. You know, it leads them to, can you believe this bozo guy that's running the government? Can you believe what's happening to me? Did I tell you the last thing my boss said? What an idiot! That's how some people respond. That's not honoring God. I mean, it might be venting, it might be reality, but I said, you know what? Why don't we turn this problem into prayer? Let's honor God at this desperate time as a nation. So, this is what's happening. I love this verse in Hebrews chapter 4, verse 13. There's no creature hidden from his sight, but all things are naked and open to the eyes of him to whom we must give an account. He says, you know, for Daniel, he goes, it's not a big deal that God can reveal this. I mean, everything's open and completely naked in him. He just sees through it. He knows. Now, in a very positive way, God knows exactly what I'm doing. He knows what you're going through this morning. He knows the solution. You need to live a life that honors Him and turns that problem into prayer. That's the positive. He knows what I'm going through. But on the negative, He also knows when I'm sinning. He knows when I'm hiding something. He knows when I'm like these astrologers and magicians. Hey, let's stall for time. Let's try and cover our tracks. There's a proverb that says, he who covers his sin will not prosper. But he who confesses and forsakes his sin will prosper. So here they go. I know God knows everything. And in here, that's a good thing. So their problem led them to prayer. The answer to the prayer led them to praise. Here's the dream with its interpretation. Beginning in verse 24. Therefore Daniel went to Arioch, whom the king had appointed to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went in and said thus to him, don't destroy the wise men of Babylon. I just thought of that. He might say, those two over there, you might get rid of them, but the rest, he just said, don't destroy any of them. Take me before the king. Remember, when you kneel before God, you can stand before him. And I will tell the king the interpretation. Arioch quickly brought Daniel before the king and said thus to him, I found a man of the captives of Judah, one of these teenage boys, who will make known to the king the interpretation. So verse 26, the king answered and said to Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar. Daniel is his Hebrew name. Belteshazzar is the one given to by the Babylonians. Are you able to make known to me the dream which I've seen and its interpretation? Verse 27, Daniel answered in the presence of the king and said, the secret which the king has demanded, the wise men, the astrologers, the magician, the soothsayers, that's what we would call astrologers today, the stargazers, they cannot declare to the king. But there is a God in heaven who reveals secrets. He's made known to King Nebuchadnezzar what will be in the latter days. So it's a prophetic dream. Your dream and the visions of your head upon your bed were these. So beginning in verse 29, he begins to explain what happened. Okay, last night, that's for you, okay? Thoughts came to your mind while you were on your bed about what would come to pass after this. And he who reveals secrets, again giving God the glory, has made known to you what will be. But as for me, this secret has not been revealed to me because I have more wisdom than anyone living, but for the sakes but for our sakes who made known the interpretation to the king, and that you may know the thoughts of your head, of your heart. You, O king, so here's the thing, verse 31. You were watching, and behold, a great image. This great image whose splendor was excellent. Remember in the original, it was gigantic. Stood before you, and its form was awesome. The image's head was of fine gold. And then as you go down, the chest and arms were of silver. Then the belly and the thighs were of bronze, its legs of iron, and its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. But what's interesting, as you go down from the top, you see the very precious metals. And as it goes down, the metals become lesser in value, but stronger at the same time. So, as you watch in verse 34, while a stone was cut without hands, which struck the image of its feet of iron and clay and broke them in pieces. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, the gold, they were crushed together and became like chaff from the summer threshing floor. The wind carried them away so that no trace of them was found. And the stone which struck the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. This is the dream. Now we, so evidently Daniel's three buddies are with him, we will tell the interpretation of it before the king. You, O king, verse 37, you're the king of kings. The God of heaven, notice, has given you a kingdom of power, strength, and glory. And wherever the children of men dwell, or the beasts of the field, the birds of the heaven, he has given them into your hand. He's made you ruler over them. You are the set of gold. I'm thinking, right now, this king is feeling pretty good. I like this dream. I'm the head of gold. I'm the king. But after after you, because this is what he was wondering, what's going to happen after these things? After you shall rise another kingdom inferior to yours, then another, a third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over all the earth. Then the fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron, inasmuch as iron breaks in pieces and shatters everything, and like iron that crushes, that kingdom will break in pieces and crush all the others. So it's interesting, a lot is given about that kingdom. Verse 41, whereas you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay, partly of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. And yet the strength of the iron shall be in it. But as you saw the iron mixed with ceramic clay, just as you saw it in verse 42, as the toes of the feet were partly of iron, partly of clay, so the kingdom will be partly strong, that's the iron part, and partly fragile. As you saw iron mixed with ceramic clay, they will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not adhere to one another, just as iron doesn't mix with clay. Verse 44 is important. It starts with, as in the days of these kings, that means there's been a gap between the fourth kingdom and this one. As in the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up, or in the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which will never be destroyed. And the kingdom will not be left to other people. It shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Inasmuch as you saw the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and it broke in pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, the gold. The great God has made known to the king what will come to pass after this. The dream is certain, its interpretation is sure. Some lengthy scriptures. But let's get this whole picture of what's going on. What Daniel does here is so accurate as he describes the future kingdoms of the world at that time. Remember, they're good 500 years, 600 years before Christ. He is so accurate that many people say, Daniel wasn't written 500 or 600 years before Christ. It was written, later, because you can't prophesy that accurately. Well, it's still, some of it's still future tense. And the neat thing about prophecy is real prophecy, biblical prophecy. It's like watching a DVD for God. It's like it's a movie you've already memorized. One way of looking at it is prophecy is history in reverse. It's history before it happens. So this is what goes on. He goes, all right. As he's describing the dream, can you imagine the king? I just see his jaw dropping on, what? That's it! You are amazing! How did you do that? And what I like about Daniel in this is how quickly he is. He's so quick to give God the glory. And right away, hey, listen, king, don't think it's me, okay? I'm God's messenger in this. He told me something, I'm just passing on to you. And another time he goes, and don't think it's because I'm so wise. That, he's wise, he's figured. No, it's God has given this to me. And we point this out because of this. Anyone who wants to be involved in the Lord's work, this is one of the first things you need to know. It is not about you. Alright? It is not your bride. It is not your kingdom. Okay? It's Him. And so it's all about Him and how we treat His bride. You're part of His bride. You're part of His kingdom. And so God gets the glory. You know what? I can really get in the way. You could really get in the way and really mess things up by not doing things scripturally. But let's honor Him, okay? Now, it says, King, here's how it was before you fell asleep. So Daniel begins to describe exactly what happened that night. I know what you were thinking about before you fell asleep. You're going, gosh, I wonder what's going to happen after me. Because this king, he's in charge of the whole known world at that time. And he goes, okay, because that's what you're thinking about, here's your dream. So now we have a statue up here on the PowerPoint that helps us to give a little, I'm so visual, it helps me to say, okay, the first one, you're the head of gold. And so the king, it starts with Babylon. It starts, back then, this was present tense. It says, you're the head of gold. And he goes, wow, you're the king of all kings in that sense. And, it's been said that he had this autocratic rule that his word was so Powerful. If he said, you know what, I want all my wise men dead by morning, it would happen. And no one would second guess him. The next kingdom, the Medo-Persian kingdom, it says, is not going to be as powerful because their king, remember Darius, we'll get into this in chapter 6, Daniel in the lion's den. Once he signed something into law, he couldn't even change it as the king. Where Nebuchadnezzar, if he changed his mind, I just changed my mind, and nobody can say anything about it. So he says, you're the king. You're the king of all kings. But if you think it's always going to be that way, I'm going to pop your bottle. Because the next kingdom, that silver part, is a combination of the Medes and the Persians. You have Cyrus the Great and King Darius. And they're going to come in, and actually, Isaiah describes exactly how they're going to do this, which they already do. Okay? And they're going to set up a kingdom. Now, they're inferior in that they don't have the same kind of rule that you have, but they last longer, and they're a lot richer than you too. Then he goes into the next one, Greece, the thighs of brass. And of course, we know that this is, Alexander the Great, who by 33 years old, he broke down crying because there were no more kingdoms to conquer. He's 33 and he ruled the world, and of course he died sooner than that. But in this time of Greece, it was just an awesome time. Then from there, it goes to Rome, and the legs of iron were Rome. Of course, they ruled for a good 500 years. Rome was a lot more goes into Rome. Because later on, Daniel's going to say, the Antichrist is going to come from there. It's going to be a Roman. And he set this up because Rome they were known for their iron. And when they would show up on the shores with their boats, they were known to burn their boats, saying, we're not going back until we rule over you. They would so crush them with iron that whole places would just surrender and go, okay, we're done. So we surrendered. Of course, Rome was famous for its roads. They built 52,000 miles of roads. Awesome. Okay, then of course it goes into, like I said in verse 44, when it says, in the days of those kings, it said, now we're talking about a big gap in time. So far it's been 2,000 years, 1,900 years. It said, in the end times, there's going to be these 10 toes that will rule the world, and they'll have some strength like iron, like a Roman influence, and then others like clay, and they really don't go together. It's going to be some kind of end times thing, but it's going to be a weak kingdom at the same time. And those of you up on your Bible prophecy realize this is talking about some kind of a 10-nation confederation that gathered together at the end of the world and try to rule things. It's like, after the rapture, they're trying to make sense of everything, trying to stabilize the world. And here's the part that really troubled the king. This rock comes out of nowhere, okay, at this point of the dream, smashes the feet, but all these metals fall down, they collapse, they turn to dust basically, and the wind blows it away. What was that? And now this rock, made without hands, so it's divine in nature, this rock begins to grow, and it spreads and fills the whole world. We know that to be, again, it's a future tense thing. This is the kingdom of Jesus Christ. When he comes back, he's not going to die anymore. He's going to rule. He's going to set up a kingdom that will never be broken. It's the last kingdom that will be known to men. So, at this point, we end this chapter 2. Beginning in verse 46. Then King Nebuchadnezzar fell on his face, prostrate before Daniel. Okay, this is the king. Remember, he was just called the King of Kings. He's bowing before a teenager. And commanded that they should present an offering and incense to him. And the king answered Daniel and said, truly, your God is the God of gods, the Lord of lords, and a revealer of secrets, since you could reveal the secret. Then the king promoted Daniel and gave him many gifts, and made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon, and the chief administrator over all the wise men of Babylon. Verse 49, also Daniel petitioned the king, and he said Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, now he's using their Babylonian names, He sent these guys over the affairs of the province of Babylon, but Daniel sat in the king's gate. Okay, now, let's try and picture this. Daniel tells him the dream, which was impossible. Only God could do it. And then he tells him the interpretation of the dream. And so here's the king's response. He falls prostrate before a teenager. Just one question. What would that do to you? It's never happened to me, okay? I've never had the mightiest man in the world just fall down in front of me and basically worship me. Here's a teenager. My goodness, if I was that guy, there's no hat big enough to put on my head. I'm just thinking, I am the man. I am pretty cool. You know? Then the king says, okay, let's burn incense to Daniel like we do to other gods. One question, what would that do to you? Would you be tempted to go, well, you know, it's about time. I am 15, whatever you is. I am pretty insightful. I am pretty cool. I am pretty humble. I'm the humblest guy. What would it do to you? Would you be tempted to go, yeah, I like this. We just hit a new gear. You know what Daniel did? Because remember, he's got this life that honors God. It's interesting. He remembers his friends. And in the midst of all this craziness going on, he goes, hey, could you remember my 3 buddies? They were in on this as well. And so they're all promoted as well. Here we go. What are the life lessons we gather from this? Okay, here's the application. When you say life is not fair, when you're dealing with governments, bosses, irritating people who have a pride trip, or who have an anger problem, or they have power to abuse you. What do you do when life isn't fair? Recently, my wife and I had the privilege of going to lunch with Nick Buchison, okay? Of the Life Without Limbs. Remember, this is a guy, maybe you saw him recently at the Aloha Stadium. He was born without arms and legs, okay? And here we are sitting across the table from each other at Hollywood Joe's, and I go, hey, Nick, how did you get saved? I mean, now he has literally a worldwide ministry. It's just going crazy, right? But he wasn't always like that. And I said, so how did you get saved? Because I was born a preacher's kid. You know the term PK? Preacher's kid, right away. Oh man, I got some those. See, I hated God. I was angry at God. I tried to commit suicide. Nick was speaking. And then around 15 years old, he goes, you know what, maybe there is a God who loves me. Around 17, years later, he begins to go, he hears the story of the man born blind in John chapter 9. Remember the story? Jesus is walking by this guy born blind, and his apostles ask him, hey, so what? Who died? Who sinned? Did this guy sin or his parents sin because he's being judged by God? That was their mentality. They literally thought an infant in the womb could sin. And so they go, did he sin in the womb, and thus he was born blind as a judgment of God? Or did his parents sin and now God's rewarding the blind baby? Remember in verse 3, Jesus said, no, it's not like that. No, because sin is that the glory of God, the power of God might be revealed through him. Nick heard that verse and found hope. He thought, you know, if God could use that, turn that unfair situation into the glory of God, maybe me being born without arms and legs, maybe God could use me. And he said, that's the verse that God spoke to him. And now, literally a worldwide ministry, probably the most encouraging person you and I have ever met. It's extremely influential. I look at Nick and I think, I have never had a problem in my life. Right? I could look at him and go, if I were him, I'd be going, not fair. This is not fair. But remember the verse? God honors those who honor him. And Nick, very transparent about how troubling it was, how hateful and bitter he was and suicidal. Now, goodness, he's married to this beautiful girl, has a kid, has a worldwide ministry. He's turning others to Jesus Christ. He said, oh yeah, not fair, but let me tell you about Jesus. And I don't even know how many souls he has touched for Jesus. Okay, how about this one? This is some, I don't know who first said this. Well, God won't give me more than I can handle. Guys, that's a flat-out lie, okay? That is ridiculous. Because is that what you're going to tell Daniel? I mean, Daniel, tell me the dream and the interpretation, or I'm going to tie up between 4 trees and rip it to shreds. That, to me, is impossible. And here all the wise men going, King, that's impossible. Nobody does that. And so to say, God will never give you something that you can't handle, that's not true. The truth is, God will never give you something that He can't handle. But when He gives you a problem, He wants you to turn it into prayer, just like these guys did. They said, hey, let's respond and with counsel, with wisdom. Let's honor God in this. I mean, we can do it. We can blow it big time. Now, here's the problem. Some people turn it into a prayer meeting. And their prayers sound like nothing more than a shopping list. Okay, God, I'll take a dozen eggs, a gallon of milk, and 2 biscuits. Like a shopping list. And here they're saying, oh God, we got a problem. You're God. You're the one that can reveal something. It's impossible for us, but nothing's impossible for you. And so that's what they did with this prayer meeting. Now, talk about praying in faith. See, you can respond with prayer, all right? You can say, I have this impossible problem. I have something that's not fair. I have something that's crazy, and so I'm going to go pray with some friends. You can do that much and not pray in faith. I'm going to read you this because it's so powerful what happened in this lady's life. Dr. Helen Roosevelt. They're at this place. They're in Africa. And a lady, one day a young lady in that village gave birth to a child prematurely, and the mother died of childbirth. The child was premature. They needed to keep the baby warm, but didn't have an incubator, and even the hot water bottle they had was so torn up it wouldn't work. So Dr. Roosevelt gathered some of the children from that little village and said, boys and girls, we need to pray. And we need to ask God to give us a hot water bottle, or this little baby is going to die. So they began to pray. Okay? You say, it's not fair, it's crazy, what's going on? Or you can honor God. And one little girl prayed this prayer. Dear God, please send a hot water bottle today. Childlike faith. Tomorrow will be too late, because by then the baby will be dead. Dear Lord, please send a dolly for the baby's sister so she won't be lonely. Amen. Okay? That afternoon, a parcel arrives from England that a group of Christian women had put together 5 months earlier. When they opened the parcel, the very first thing on top was a hot water bottle. Okay? Dr. Roosevelt says she took the hot water bottle and was prepared to use it on that child. And the little girl who prayed that prayer starts digging through the parcel, just throwing things out. The doctor said, what are you doing? What are you looking for? The girl says, the doll. The doll. I know there's a doll in here. At the very bottom of that parcel was a rag doll that someone had put in that package. It's not just some cliche. When we say take a problem and turn it into prayer, we need to pray in faith. You're the guy who can answer this prayer. This is beyond me. It's beyond the government. It's beyond my boss. It's beyond comprehension. But it's nothing to you. So I want to honor you with the way I respond. Here's the last thing. Wherever you are, whatever you're facing, God is it. You're not. I'm not. He knows your future too. It's not just He can say what's going to happen over thousands of years in the Bible. He knows your future. Remember the positive? He knows exactly what I'm going through. He knows exactly what you're going through. The negative? He knows what I'm trying to hide. And I'm not very good at that at all. Not only does He know what you're going through, He knows what you're hiding. He knows what you've hidden from your wife, what you've hidden from your boss, what you've hidden from your parents, or your teens. He knows it. And He is able, no matter what, as we turn to Him in prayer, remember the promise. Those who honor me, I will honor. How able is He? exceedingly abundantly, above and beyond all we can ask or think. That's what Daniel found out here in chapter 2. That's what God has for us. You know what? Let's bring the worship team back up. I love how Pastor Jason said, only in youth camp with that song, Oh Happy Day. Hey, we can do that.